Okay, children, let's lay back. And now, allow your eyes to close as you imagine that you are outdoors in a very quiet, peaceful, safe place. It may be an imaginary place. Feel the wind. Notice the sky.
Well, what in the world is going on? Do parents realize the incredible mind manipulation that is taking place in the public schools? Do they realize that their children are being exposed to New Age techniques that lead to the altered states of consciousness? One thing is for sure. In the research that we did for this video, and the research that my wife Patty did for our special report, when we talk to the kids today, we realize that they are now raised in the video age. Instead of playing kick the can and hide and seek and football and baseball, they spend time in front of their VCR. They have a television set with hundreds of channels instead of just the one or two that when we had as kids. And now they have easy access to MTV and their heavy metal rock bands preaching that message to them. And all we see in all of these things are heavy doses of occultism. They have been fully indoctrinated into the ideas of Hinduism and Buddhism and the occult and the New Age.
'Cause I know that Jesus is love. I know that. And if you ask, love is the word forever. Who can bring you love? Jesus. Who can bring
Thunder! Thundercats!
You will notice that our kids, without even realizing it, are becoming experts on the New Age. They're becoming experts on Hinduism. As you just saw in this Thundercats cartoon, we have the message of the third eye. We went into a toy store and bought one of the swords. And the kids play with these swords, and they hold it exactly like we saw in the cartoon, and begin to think about the power of opening this third eye. The whole dream in the occult is to open this third eye through meditation and relaxation therapies, and the kids are getting a crash course right here on the Thundercats cartoon.
Now, your wise person is coming towards you. You may ask your wise person anything you want.
Perhaps the most blatant example of all of this idea of the third eye and the power of the sword and the power of mysticism is to be found in the cartoon He-Man. And then we have He-Man say, "I am Adam." You will recall that there is a biblical Adam. And of course we have this new Adam who realizes his power how? By lifting aloft his magic sword and saying, "I am the power." There is another gospel in the land. Unfortunately, it is the gospel of Antichrist that is being force-fed into their little minds.
And the same happens in the occult world, and this is the danger when children are playing role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons.
According to Dr. Thomas Radicki of the National Coalition on Television Violence, he says, "There is no doubt in my mind that the game Dungeons and Dragons is causing young men to kill themselves and others." We wonder why so many kids are committing suicide.
Suicides, murders, and Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons is a real serious problem. But as we'll see in the upcoming few moments, the problems with role-playing games have moved far beyond Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm sure we've all heard of Nintendo by now. So we began to take a closer look at the Nintendo games, and as we walked down the aisles of the video store, we saw the incredibly descriptive titles. I'm looking at here some of the instruction manuals for Final Fantasy, and we'll talk about this in a second. Dungeon Magic. Then we went and conducted some interviews with some young men who were video game addicts, so to speak. These kids are talking in terms we don't understand. One of the kids that we interviewed smiled because his mother was off the camera and said, "My mother just can't figure this thing out." And I have here one for wizardry. You know, the Bible tells us that in the last days that the whole world will worship the dragon. And here we see right on the cover is the dragon. And I began to look through the instruction manual, and I see here how to cast magical spells, and mage spells, and cleric spells, casting magic spells, page 22. It is important to remember that the source of all magic is the life force of the user. This is the teaching of the occult. This is exactly what we were introduced into in Star Wars and E.T. I'm looking now at the instruction guide to one of the Nintendo games, Final Fantasy. And I look in here, page 72, white magic. Page 76, black magic. And once again, it's how you can get in touch with your wizard and learn all the levels of magic. You see, it's not just a simple one little thing. There are 8 different levels of magic, both white and black, that the kids can tap into here. A clear example of this kind of media shaping took place in We Are the World. The idea of raising famine relief for Africa, which was very noble, but there were other ideas planted in there as well. And one of the key organizers of that sting is now traveling the world trying to get our children to become more environmentally conscious. They're not just listening to rock and roll or the Beatles. It's not the same as when we were younger, just another phase. They're now listening to religious and political indoctrination.
Now close your eyes and just relax while I lead you in a guided fantasy.
Our educational system is now intensifying its campaign to destroy the minds, souls, and morals of our children. The New Age mindset is being promoted through textbooks, values clarification, sensitivity training, situational ethics, globalism, multiculturalism, evolution, Eastern religion, group dynamics, group decision-making, sex education, socialism, anything and everything that undermines our Judeo-Christian foundation.
Many of them tended to gravitate toward heavy metal music, people like Ozzy Osbourne or groups like AC/DC and Black Sabbath. And if you listen to any of these groups for more than a few seconds, you'll see that it's not the quality of music that attracts these kids. It's the image. I asked one 17-year-old who was in for trying to kill his stepfather why he liked Ozzy Osbourne so much. He told me everybody likes Ozzy Osbourne. Man, he tried to kill a chicken on stage once.
Okay. It's time to go now. But remember, you can come back to this place or any place that you feel safe anytime you want. And your wise person will be there to answer all of your questions.
I don't want to overstate the case, but America is no longer a Christian country.